what up, everyone? This is What Are You Jamming? I'm your host, Chris Owen. What Are You Jamming is a podcast where I talk to musicians about their life, their music, whatever else comes up when you stop pretending this is a normal interview. At the end of every episode, I ask the question that the whole thing is built on. What are you jamming? Not the polished answer, not the networking answer, the real one. The one that tells me a little more than you probably meant to. Today's guest is Laurent Schroeder-Lebec of the band Pelican, a band that has been making instrumental music for over 2 decades that somehow hits harder than a lot of bands with someone yelling the whole time. No disrespect to yelling, big fan, but this is different. Under this intro, you're hearing Cascade Crescent from the newest record, Flickering Resonance. We get into the Chicago hardcore scene, how the band has evolved, the ongoing completely useless effort to pin a genre on them, and the new record, which looks more melodic, but still carries some weight to it. We also talk pandemic life, running bars, gear, why playing live still matters when music doesn't come with lyrics, and of course, ask them, what are you jamming? It's a good one. No notes, well, some notes musically. This is my conversation with Laurent from Pelican. Let's get into it. Hey, Laurent, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me on the show.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for coming on. Before we dive in, can you introduce yourself for the listeners, who you are and what you do?
Yeah. What I do in my life or what I do in the context of the band?
How about both? I mean, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Sure. My name is Laurent Lebec. I'm a human being on this earth like you.
Yeah.
I live in Chicago. I play guitar, one of 2 guitarists in Pelican. And then otherwise, man, my grind is bar work. So
Yeah. How long have you been doing bar work?
16 years.
16 years. So you started when you were in Pelican.
I did, yeah. Midway through the the arc of the band's existence is when I started doing that.
What was that like during the COVID lockdown?
Not great.
Okay.
So I work at a place in Chicago called Big Star, and we mostly did like grab and go stuff during COVID. It wasn't that great. It actually aligns with that. I was not in the band at the time. Mostly just, tried to survive from doing carry out and stuff like that. It was a little intense. So it was definitely I think for all sorts of industries it was not a great time unless you had like some remote job or whatever.
I was lucky enough to have a remote job during that time. I don't actually got laid off back in October. Not October. I guess Halloween. And so it's still a pretty rough industry to find a job right now.
Yeah,
So,
man, for a lot of people in general.
But I'm not trying to bum you out.
No, you're good.
So you were paid for Pelican for about 10 years. What's it like what's it like being back?
It's great. The band started in the early 2000s. It sort of was, the thing that we all felt so compelled to just do musically and kind of professionally. We enjoyed like a pretty epic first run there.
Yeah.
And we got to a point after what we all come to need when we were at the end of that touring cycle, where I just had other goals and ambitions that started to clash a little bit. I think it was both having burned out a little bit on the nonstop touring and just balancing home life and stuff got to be tricky. And then it was like, do you tour, take a break? I also, I wanted to have a kid at the time.
Sure.
I wasn't sure how I was going to make that work. So I got home and I started working at a couple friends' bars. And I kind of quickly realized that I could sort of segue into doing that full time and kind of provide the stability that I needed for my kids. So that's what I started to do. And then I think I ultimately at the time felt it too difficult to kind of uphold both those fears in my life.
Right.
And I let the band go. But with some maturity and hindsight, I then landed in a place where I was like, man, maybe I didn't need to leave. And it was coinciding with me and the guys kind of spending more time with each other because we were reissuing our back catalog on Thrill Jockey. And so just a lot of memory lane, hindsight,
Sure.
rediscovering that time in our lives.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, they had a run of dates post COVID um, that Dallas, who had replaced me, was not going to join them on.
Hmm.
So they invited me back for that run, and then we kind of took it one step at a time. And when we came back, it was clear that the chemistry was still there, and
Great.
everybody was viewing it from, like I said, just a place with a bit more growth and
Yeah.
maturity at the time. And we were like, let's get into some new music.
Yeah. So I'm sure after 10 years, I'm sure that after Pelican, you sort of Pelican, you didn't stop playing guitar, right? I'm sure you came up with
No,
stuff all
yeah,
the time.
I did take a little bit of an active break from my gear. I was
Yeah.
maybe, strumming my acoustic guitar and stuff. I tried to get a couple little things off the ground, but,
Yeah.
um, you know, I think it was, for me, it was like, uh, a period of like, hey, is there anything else that I'm about? Is there anything else that kind of defines me?
Yeah.
Because I've been defined by this one thing for
Yeah.
so long, it's been
Gotcha.
like all my eggs were in that basket.
Hmm.
And so I I think I took a mental break from it, not as a listener. I've always been a pretty avid collector
Yeah.
and listener of music, like always just trying to get into new stuff, new and old.
Hmm.
So that part, it's not like I just, put on a suit and tie and then decided like, hey, I'm not into music anymore. But I wasn't trying to do like another, you know, post rock,
Yeah.
post whatever
Yeah.
doom
Plus
thing.
whatever. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's just,
I did take kind of an active break from, um, doing another band, just to
yeah.
again like go all in on this fatherhood thing and some other things that were kind of calling my attention.
Yeah.
But life is all about being able to hold up different
Hmm.
spheres in your life that are critical. And so I was glad to have music come back
Absolutely.
um and yeah, I mean we're pretty active, maybe not quite as active as we were when we were trying to make a full stop go of it.
How do you feel about the labels that people put on you guys? They'll say instrumental or post metal or post rock. Do you even think about that at all?
Sometimes they will not align um
Hmm.
with what I think we are, which I think is, I think we encapsulate a lot of different things.
Hmm.
I don't think we've ever been the kind of band that's like, oh, we listen to this. These are the bands that influence us, and it sounds
Yeah.
like this because of it. I think if
Yeah.
you ask any one member of the band, we overlap on a bunch of stuff, but
Hmm.
I think most important to us is the time that we came up in, which was a really fertile period for all sorts of bands discovering what existed past hardcore, like outside of traditional metal.
Right.
There was just a lot of exploration. It was less like boxy.
Hmm.
It's maybe not quite as freeform as it is now. Now I feel like there is not only a resurgence of like all sorts of traditional hardcore and metal and whatever, but everybody's super comfortable with genre hopping and trying out other things, tagging different kinds of sounds,
Right.
collaborating, whatever. It's really torn wide open, and to me an immeasurably creative time. But
Oh yeah.
it's interesting because I do think people like to put labels on things.
Hmm.
Um, I think our affiliations are pretty diverse, but I suppose if you needed to put us in a box, yeah, there are some post rocky elements there.
Yeah.
Um, I think that whole scene tired out a little bit.
Yeah.
The sort of glitchy delay pedal.
Hmm.
Um, but you certainly have the bands that help define it that are wonderful bands. But I'm sure they probably all resisted the name post rock at the same time too. And it's like, hey, there's some other things going on there too. I will say the thing that's limiting about it is that you ultimately end up maybe only reaching certain audiences because
Yeah.
people don't find out about you. But you
Yeah.
could say the same thing about being labeled a doom band.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some doomy overtones, and we all share a kindred love of like Sabbath and Goatsnake and Corrupted and all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff. But um, when people say we're like a happy sludge band, I'm like, I don't even know what that means, guys. Like, we're against a bunch of different things to a bunch of different people. I think being instrumental has kept us from being too easy to pigeonhole. But at the same time, it's like we can't escape the box element of like they're an instrumental post rock band. By definition, I think that people are not willing to let us escape that territory.
So I actually spoke to Brian Funk of Val, and
Oh yeah,
he
great
said that
band. I saw them recently.
yeah, he said that the other guys, not him because he's a vocalist, but the other guys when he joined them, they were just thinking of doing a band like Pelican. That's what they said, like
Oh, that's
Pelican or
wild. Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, he said until I forced myself in the band, but yeah. So they had a whole
That's it.
record recorded.
That's interesting. Their vocals are such a definitive part of the band.
Yeah.
They actually, not to turn this into like a podcast about like why we love Thou, but they they're such a like, I saw I Hate God all the time back in the day. They were like
Yeah,
a band I
sure.
used to love seeing.
Mhm.
Very, very impressive run of shows in the late 90s in Chicago. And there was just like this sort of like kind of not particularly wholesome energy, like an actual like fear I felt like watching them, both tonally and
Yeah.
otherwise, where you're like,
Yeah.
man, this is intense. Maybe
Mhm.
intense is more of the word.
Yeah.
And Thou are a very intense live
Yeah.
show in similar ways.
So let's rewind a bit. How did you first get into music as like a kid? Where were you? What got you into
Um,
playing instruments?
well, you could probably spend a lot of time on this, so I'll try to be quick and dirty with it. I'm sure you can tell maybe from my name, but I'm not a U.S. citizen. I grew up in France.
Yeah.
I'm French. When I was a kid, my family moved to South Korea. My dad was
Mhm.
an expat. He worked there. He just up the whole family. We lived there for a number of years,
Yeah.
and I was there as a French kid, learning English, trying to find my way. It's kind of difficult.
Mhm.
And I had a long bus ride to school. And on that bus ride, there was a kid from Finland. His name was Tommy. And he would sit in the front seat with the driver. This is a true story. And pop in his cassettes and just play music on this tiny little school bus that took all us foreign kids to school. And he was super into hard rock. So he
Yeah.
would play Kiss, Scorpions, like some of the early hair metal stuff. This is like 1987, 1988. I'm
Yeah.
48 years old, so I'm pretty old. Um, but all I had ever listened to up to that point was whatever was like top 50 radio in France. So I was like, I knew about U2 and INXS and whatever. And I was kind of
Right.
drawn to guitar-y stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
less so than like actual pop music. I
Mhm.
liked the sound of guitars. Um, and when he started playing hard rock, I was like, man, what is this? It just was so electric.
Mhm.
Um, I immediately got into it. I had a small allowance. I would take the bus to go to the cassette shop. I couldn't read any of the labels, but all the import tapes I would just pick them up and go, man, this looks like it'll be heavy.
Yeah.
And sometimes you would strike gold. You'd pick up like Dio, Holy Diver,
Hell
or,
yeah. Yeah.
um, stuff like that. And sometimes you would pick it up and go, man, these guys have long hair. This is going to be cool. And you'd end up with like, Vixen or whatever was some hair metal that had like, kind of cheesier keyboards on it. You go,
Yeah.
oh, well, man, this time I made a mistake,
Yeah.
Or I remember one time I bought a Molly Hatchet cassette because
Oh.
I love the art on it.
Yeah.
Same dude who did the
Oh.
art from Motorhead.
Yeah.
And I put it on. I was like, this is not what is happening here, So
Yeah.
there were some mistakes were made along the way, but then, I ended up making friends with kids at school who were into like punk and hardcore, and we would
Yeah.
just like trade tapes and we'd make tapes for each other. And, the late 80s, you still got picked on if you weren't a jock. You still got
Yeah.
bullied. I
Mhm.
got pushed into my locker a couple times by some chodes who were like not into what I was wearing or whatever. It
Sure.
was still a pretty tribal time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then, segue into Florida death metal, thrash, whatever. I was really trying to push into extremes, but a lot of it was done from this really unique position, in my opinion,
Mhm.
of being like in South Korea. So like I had
Yeah.
mail order magazines, and like people would go to the States, tape everything off MTV Headbangers Ball, bring it back.
That's
And
awesome.
like
Yeah.
we would borrow these VHS tapes, and
Yeah.
so you'd hear about everything, but with some delay, right? So I'd be like, it looks like Napalm Death had a new video 4 or 5 months ago, and you would just hold on to that song, and I would sometimes take like a handheld cassette player, put it up to the TV
Yeah.
and record on cassette off the video to then listen to it on my Walkman. So you
Yeah.
had like a third generation sort of experience. Anyway, I graduate high school and my parents let me move to the States, and I moved to Chicago. I lived in Evanston. I was going to college there, and I met Larry. I met Trevor at hardcore shows.
Yeah.
I met Larry at a Quicksand concert, Quicksand and Civ. Shortly thereafter, met Trevor. There weren't like hundreds of kids into hardcore at the time.
Yeah.
So if you met one, you met all of them.
Yeah, sure.
Like if you meet one person in an Unbroken T-shirt on the street, like it was so you were like desperate for friendship then. So you would go, hey, I love Unbroken too. What's your name? It wasn't like it is now.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I have hundreds of friends, but they live on my phone. Back then, it was like, you really like pushed yourself into circles, looked for flyers and stuff. Anyway, so the community that we sort of were gravitating around was the Fireside Bowl, which was our like all ages venue inside a bowling alley where like every band came through.
Right.
So we're going to shows. We're experiencing like the first High on Fire shows for the first time. We'd go see ISIS, whatever.
Hell yeah.
But then all sorts of other stuff like Texas Is the Reason. His Hero Is Gone would come through, like all sorts of things. And the Fireside shows were pretty iconic and legendary because the bills were so diverse, right? You had like 4 or 5 bands coming from opposite parts of the country, some ska, some pop punk, whatever.
Sure.
And there was only one venue. So, the deal ended up being like, you can come through, but like be prepared to be on a bill where there's going to be all sorts of other stuff on there.
Yeah, that's the interesting about the late 90s is that all these bands, like pop punk bands will play with hardcore bands and that sort of thing. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, you saw that pop up in the Bay Area too, right? At Gilman Street, you would see Neurosis playing with Green Day and whatever else, and Crimpshrine and stuff like that. So I really think that it was kind of a critical time for bending boundaries.
So I know you guys came up in the punk and hardcore scene in Chicago.
Yeah.
Do you guys still have an affinity for that? Is something you look at as a way to operate the band?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that our band is anything but a punk and hardcore band. There's a level of professionalism that to us came up from watching bands like Fugazi and stuff kind of,
Hell yeah.
rule the world on their terms. The end goal was always, hey, if we can release a record, cool. And so like and the goalpost kept moving, and opportunities presented themselves along the way that were much bigger opportunities, bigger labels, bigger tours, larger releases, bigger shows, whatever. But it's never been a push for like some sort of commercial establishment. It's always with one foot in this idea of like the point is you make the art and you share the art, and then from there on you participate in the machine because you have to.
Right.
Like we're not putting any. There was never any limitations along the way of we won't do this show or play that tour. We were pretty much open to whatever along the way, and that put us in some really interesting arenas. Literally, like opening for the Deftones on the Test of Chaos tour. That was really cool. That was a really unique opportunity to get into a front of people who would have never would have otherwise heard of us.
Yeah, for sure.
And to this day, like people will come up and they're in their 40s or whatever now and go, yeah, I first heard of you when I was at the Taste of Chaos tour. And
That's awesome.
and I was like, cool, man. And, and then they're like subsequently and got me into some other stuff. So there is this interesting element of like these bigger bands with like really wide reach that are in actual like commercial spaces, big bands that take chances on smaller bands and really give them a stage for accessing a fan base that otherwise has a harder time hearing of things.
Yeah, it reminds me of ISIS took ISIS on tour.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
big move for them too, you know.
Yeah.
And the same thing with ISIS taking us on tour as in return, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously the Hydra Head family was really very connected. There was a lot of tours that were frequently Hydra Head bands pairing together and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
so that was great.
So are there any influences or albums that reshaped the way you play guitar, you think?
So the way that I play guitar really started to come into focus when, you know, we were doing a grime band at the time as our first band, me,
Yeah.
Larry, and Trevor. It was called Tusk.
Yeah.
And I was listening to, well, we all were really, like, some of what I would consider to be like the, you know, kind of nascent sort of stoner rock doom
Mhm.
sound at the time via Man's Ruin and Southern Lord and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, so like Sleep, High on Fire, Goatsnake, by the same token, like Earth.
Yeah.
And then you had the Neurosis side of things,
Yeah.
where you saw bands like ISIS coming up, but there was also a ton of other things that were out there at the time. I'm gonna throw out some bands like Floor, Cavity, like, you know, bands that tuned down
Yeah.
and got these like intense sort of reverberating guitar tones. A lot of that
Mhm.
stuff I was listening to, and I'm like, man, it kind of sounds like I could teach myself to play like that. So I was just strumming along at home, writing
Yeah.
riffs, and I think it was Larry and maybe his girlfriend at the time too. I don't know who like heard some of it and was like, "Dude, we got to do something with these riffs. They're
Yeah.
they're really fun. Let's just have fun with it." So after Tusk practice, we would, you know, the singer would leave, and then we would just like jam on these riffs. And
Yeah.
Brian, Larry's brother, would come up and he'd, you know, be in his room and he'd be like, "Man, can I jam bass on this?" He was a guitar player, and we were like, let's just do it. So we'd go up, you know, we'd be upstairs at their
Mhm.
parents' house. We'd smoke weed through, you know, a
Hell
toilet
yeah.
paper roll with a
Yeah.
dryer sheet on it,
Yeah.
and just jam tune down to B and just let it rip.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, with again, no aspirate, there was no scene, there was nothing, you know.
Yeah.
So, but we were chums with the promoter Brian Peterson, who was doing all the shows at the Fireside, and
Mhm.
he was like, "Listen, I've got ISIS coming through and High on Fire coming through separate shows. There's nobody that kind of sounds like that. I heard you're working on this thing. Is it ready yet?" And we were like, "Well, we don't have a singer, but let's just play the show."
Hell yeah.
So we did, and we played instrumentally, and it worked, man. People
Yeah.
were feeling it. There was also right from the jump, kind of like a melodic element from Trevor and I playing
Yeah.
together that only further matured over time and became its own thing. But
Yeah.
early on in the beginning, it was definitely sort of that interaction between the two guitars, and it was loud as fuck, and people came out, you know, and it sort of started to build, you know. And I'm thinking like success at the time was like, man, there's 50 people here, like we're in our own minds, like it. This is it, you know.
Yeah.
This is
This
our
is
this is
success. Yeah.
this is our version of success.
Yeah.
So, you know, some of these first out of town opportunities were a big deal. You know, playing with Isis and Aaron calling
Mhm.
me up, sending me an email actually
Mhm.
saying, "Hey, you know, I'm really digging the demo you gave us. Like, what are the plans for your band? Give me a call." And then agreeing to re-release our self-release demo
Hell yeah.
on Hydra Head. And then going on, you know, we were working on Australasia at the time, and
Mhm.
that record was similar, but a big departure. And I think Australasia was definitely the record that put us on a much larger stage because
Yeah, that's
it
like
allowed us
the
to, yeah, it
growing up,
allowed us
that
to,
was the one my friends
hmm
were putting on all the time, so
it allowed us to go to Europe. It allowed us to play much bigger shows, first West Coast tour.
Mhm.
Um, but Fire in Our Throats for us was kind of the nadir at the time, you know, the biggest peak reached.
Yeah.
Um, those were much bigger shows. You know, it was like selling out 300 cap rooms
Yeah.
in mainstream markets, in major markets. You know, like big shows in Seattle and New York and LA and stuff. Those were the ones where I was like, we all felt it, you know, like we could make a go of this.
Yeah.
And so we did, you know, between Fire in Our Throats and City of Echoes and What We All Come to Need, the band was the main focus for
Right.
all of us, like for professionally and otherwise. And it was feasible at the time for a band of our stature, which wasn't like huge or anything, you know,
Yeah.
but it's like it was consistent tours, but like merch was still a thing. Streaming was
Yeah.
non-existent.
Right.
You know, you
Uh-huh.
sold hundreds of CDs. And, people buy vinyl now, they buy CDs, they buy cassettes, but I almost feel like for a lot of people, it's like you buy it to hold it and own it.
Mhm.
You will spin it, but it's not your principal way of enjoying music. I mean,
Right.
you did have, people had iPods and stuff, and
Yeah.
you were spinning MP3s, but I think the move to streaming where you have like the art and the browsing part of it,
Yeah.
I think was a major restructuring of the musical experience for people, and certainly for touring bands.
Do you think what's your thoughts on like that the move to that? Do you think it's cheapens the music, or do you feel like it's just different now?
I feel like you know the it's like a house that you live in, and
Mhm.
the architecture is out of your control. Like
Yeah.
I do feel like I can have some say and influence on how I wish things were, but
Yeah.
ultimately I don't decide the commodities market.
Sure.
I'm sure that when people saw the advents of CDs, people who were pressing vinyl or whatever were like, "Man, this sucks. The CD's not as good."
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, there's still like a financial transaction happening, and so I can tell you things that suck. Like I think streaming platforms paying such an unbelievably infinitesimal return on
Yeah.
individual streams is actual exploitation.
Mhm.
Um, it definitely cheapens art. It makes it harder to produce art. It makes it harder for people to make creative decisions like, can I live off my art? Can I
Yeah.
fully commit to my art? No, I actually have to go to work,
Yeah.
and I'll do my art outside of that. Um, I don't think it's stopping anyone from being in a band. And it's evident that there are people who can kind of break out of that and have like
Yeah.
such large streaming numbers and be on really successful tours.
Mhm.
But it's also brought about an era of like co-branding all the time.
Yeah.
You gotta look for other ways to reach people or other products to get into. And we're no strangers to that.
Mhm.
We put out a wheat strain earlier this year. Like um, we've done bags of coffee, whatever. I think a lot of that is mostly to collaborate with people in other creative spheres
Right.
who are doing cool stuff and are into the band. Um, but yeah, I mean, long story short, like I can't control the larger architecture as much as I would like to. So I can just, I can be critical, but I also have to go with the flow. I um I can say that like the
Okay.
last few tours, it's evident that kids are really enjoying shows. I think live music is
Yeah.
really back in a big way. Um and that's wonderful to see. So I think as long as people are coming out and listening and supporting and engaging, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. So, I don't know if this is really a relevant question, but, um, how did you guys come up with the name Pelican, and why did you choose it?
I really can't remember. This comes up every interview. I can't remember the so I should
Sorry.
know the story.
Yeah.
That's okay. I should have some boilerplate language for it that makes sense. I don't have one. I think we were probably thinking about like, since the music was instrumental, we were trying to probably think of some like elements of nature or the outside world, whatever, and we settled on that.
Mhm.
And it just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's worked well for us. Um, in terms of imagery, it's still a somewhat strange creature.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
it has a unique shape and sort of role that it plays in the world of birds.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's made sense for us. I think the idea of flight more than anything suits the
Yeah,
band. The
yeah,
idea of
that
like something that soars and takes you to places you didn't expect to go to, something you don't quite understand, something um otherworldly. It's not like, you can't really call the band like, Robin or
yeah.
Seagull. Seagull would have not been as interesting. So I think Pelican worked out pretty good. In the end, though, the box that we play in is just there are no real boundaries to what we do. I mean, we limit ourselves to being instrumental. It's the four of us. There are very rarely outside collaborators, and we tune to B standard and we play loud guitars. In that sandlot, though, we don't really have any rule books. We just kind of do our thing within this existing sort of playground of options.
So when you write songs, do you write riffs, textures, or something else entirely? Like what was that look like for you when writing?
In the beginning, it was a lot of me. Then it was me and Trevor. Right around City of Echoes, Brian really started to have a more present bass tone. Songs became more riff based. At the time, Trevor had moved to North Carolina for a little bit, so Larry, Brian, and myself were working a lot together. Then Larry and Brian moved to LA, so it was back to being me and Trevor. Like it's gone to being different people. I would say it's fairly highly collaborative, but it does tend to start with riff ideas. Sometimes if it's something I bring, it'll typically be more of a structure, like a full structured thing. But it gets rearranged and interpreted through the filter of the rest of the band. And that can sometimes mean that the song goes to like a completely different place.
Yeah, sure. So let's talk a little about Flickering Resonance, the newest record. Like when this was your first record back with Pelican, like full start, and so did you when sorry when the record was coming together, did you know it was being a new record, or like we're making a new record now?
Yeah, I think the goal was we had just done a couple songs for a covers EP that came out on Numero Group. We did an Unwound and Karate cover.
Yeah.
And we were like, we're ready to move to writing material. And we did an EP that we self-released with 2 songs, put it out on cassette, and we were just in between labels and we didn't know where we were going to go. We sent that material to Run for Cover as well and started having some conversations. We were really trying to talk to different labels who we felt could be like our new home. And while that was happening, of course, we were writing material because we knew that we wanted to do a new record. So we were writing as we were figuring things out. A lot of the material was already pretty fleshed out by the time we did the label announce and all that stuff. But I think some of the later material, and we were veering in a very melodic direction, especially with the newer stuff.
Sure.
But I think for me, anyway, cementing that partnership with Run for Cover and taking into consideration some of their back catalog and stuff affirmed for me that some of the chances that we were taking with the material, which I don't think sounds dissimilar to any other Pelican record or anything. I just think there's a higher quota of brighter, more melodic moments on this particular record than there are on some of the others.
I would agree with that for sure. For sure.
And it just sort of was like, I think this being on Run for Cover makes sense.
Yeah. So were there any changes coming back? Like did you guys sort of lock into the old chemistry you had? Or,
I think we locked into a new chemistry that was better. Larry, Brian, and Trevor had done an absurd amount of musical growth on their own when I was gone. And I even remarked to Trevor once, I'm like, man, I got some catching up to do. Just in terms of like just technical abilities, but also mostly how they were locking in with each other. It was like I was back on the outside, sort of like pushing back in a very like fun, friendly, collaborative way.
Absolutely, yeah.
I had a bit of more of like a gravitational pull in the early years of the band due to how much I was writing and a little bit of like a bullheaded personality when it came to that stuff. You're different in your 20s than you are in your 40s.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And I'm grateful for it. I think all of us now talk fairly openly and freely about things and tend to get less like, we're not digging in our heels on just about any aspect of this band. It's sort of like, if it works for all of us, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So when it comes to like, I'm sure you're proud of all the records. Is there one that you really look at as the one that you're super proud of? Would that be Flickering Resonance, you think?
Yeah, I would think that's probably the one I'm the most connected with.
Mhm.
I really like What We All Come to Need. That record for me was the confirmation of a lot of things that I felt strongly about, riff wise and sound wise especially.
Mhm.
But I would say that I can cherry pick things off all the records that are some of my favorite moments.
Right.
Um, but as an overall record, uh, it would probably be the newest one. I think both in sound, execution, art, all of it. Like I think it's the one that best represents a lot of the things that we were about.
I think it's dope, by the way. So I love
Thank
that
you.
new record.
Yeah, glad you
Yeah.
asked. That'd be weird if you were like, that's funny you say that because I really don't care for it.
If you had to pick one track that really represents Pelican right now, which would you choose?
Well, I would say there's two sides of the same coin.
Mhm.
I think the last song, "Wandering Mind,"
Oh yeah.
has a lot of Pelicanisms on it, especially this sort of like long arc to a big sort of crescendo at the end.
Mhm.
Um, I would say Gulch too has some of the like the hyper kind of saccharine melodies that
Mhm.
are maybe a little shoegazy at times, a little bit of hum going on in there. And yeah, I mean, along the way, there's all sorts of. I don't think there's any. I mean, look, when you're 20 years into a thing,
Mhm.
20 plus years,
Yeah, 25 maybe. Yeah.
like unless you're intentionally introducing some like, hey, we're gonna do this now, or we have a keyboard player, or like we're only doing spontaneous creations, whatever. It's gonna be hard to venture too far from the path.
Mhm.
So, and I'm down for that. Like, when you put on like a Sabbath record or a Motorhead record or whatever, they're just they're still they're writing different songs and they're exploring, but they still sound like themselves.
Right.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with fully reinventing yourself with every record, but I think that type of regeneration doesn't belong as much to the area that we're in.
Sure. I'm gonna ask a question about Cassie and Crescent. We had the B side with Jeff Rickley on vocals. How'd that come
Yeah,
together?
we were deciding on a promo item
Mhm.
for the record, and a 7-inch was an idea that was brought up, and so we thought, let's do Cascading Crescent, and then uh, Jeff at Run for Cover said it would be cool to do a totally different thing on the B side. Um, and we were thinking like, could it be another band covering us or a split or something?
Mhm.
And then the idea of a vocal version of the song came up. You might remember or know of it like back in the day when you would release singles for jukeboxes,
Mhm.
you often did that. You had the vocal version on one side and
Yeah.
then the B side you had the instrumental version. A lot of like, you know, country records were that way. You had
Mhm.
the A side and the B side.
Right.
So it was kind of cool to flip it. The A side is like us, doing our instrumental thing, and the B
Mhm.
side's a vocal version. And Trevor is connected with Jeff and said, "I'm just going to email him and ask him."
Awesome.
And so he did, and he
Yeah.
said and he we had done shows with them, and we knew he was um, supportive of our music, so it was great that he decided to do it. And I think I remember when we first heard it, I was like, I actually can't tell whether the song was meant to have vocals or meant to be instrumental because he really laid into it
Yeah.
in a way that made it sound like it was his song.
Yeah, when I was young, much younger, like, Thursday was my shit, so,
Yeah,
seeing that, I was like, "Oh my god, this brings me back," you know?
yeah, and it's been it's that it speaks back to what I was saying before, right? It's like
Mhm.
if you want people in other musical worlds to hear you and what you're doing, or to
Mhm.
discover instrumental bands for the first time or whatever, it's like those are the moments I cherish the most, right? Somebody at a Thursday show or cruising through the Thursday discography and going like, geez, I wonder what Jeff is up to these days, and going like,
Yeah.
oh, weird, he did vocals for this band. And then they put it on and go, whoa, that's cool. I'd never heard this kind of guitar playing or whatever. And then, they feel compelled to check it out.
Yeah.
It's getting, if you think about the sheer number of bands that are vying for anybody's attention right now,
Yeah.
I have these moments where I look at my records in my room and I go, some of these records I may never listen to again before I die.
I know. I got a stack on my table right now that I'm like, I haven't had time to listen to all the stuff that I've got. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's and then again we still continue to buy things. But
yeah,
it's so I don't take it for granted that somebody at some point is making a decision to spend time with us versus something else that might interest them.
yeah, for sure. Uh, can we change gears and actually talk about gear for a second?
Yeah.
So what's your setup right now?
I got two setups,
Hmm.
and it's a coin toss as to which one I like the most.
Yeah.
I have my orange rocker verb, which is what I use and have used on the last few tours.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm putting that through through my pedal board. I use a pedal train board like hundreds of others.
Yeah.
Um, I use a fuzz pedal on the front end, very lightly from Earthquaker. I'm obviously running the gain distortion off my
Yeah.
head, and then
Hmm.
put it through an orange EQ to kind of boost some of the upper mids that get lost in that sound.
Sure.
Um, I've got a couple Strymon pedals for delay and reverb. I've got a Boss Echo pedal.
Hmm.
I use chorus fairly sparingly, and I use the JHS tremolo pedal.
Yeah.
And that's really the only modulation I do, which is very minimal.
Yeah.
At home, I play an MPEG B4 through a Mesa cab.
Yeah.
That is probably the head I like the most. The push from that amp is pretty colossal. It's a lot of like just tube heaviness, and I
Yeah.
run that through the Earthquaker Palisades, which is a 3-stage distortion that I don't think they make anymore, but it's got two channels and then a boost
Yeah.
switch on it to kind of boost your preamp and kind of saturate the tone more. And I
I
run
lo-
that through a couple of other pedals.
I love the Earthquaker stuff. They do some really cool stuff down
They really
Earthquake.
do.
Yeah, yeah. Like I have a fuck ton of pedals, like 40 sitting on my
There you go. Yeah.
yeah, and of a fair amount of those are Earthquaker because they put out just great stuff. So they're probably my favorite boutique pedal maker, but there's all kinds of stuff out there that's great.
Yeah, we just did a pedal that we released a small run of with Dead Air.
Hmm.
Um and it's a pedal called Resonance, which is a reverb pedal that has 2 stages on it. And it's a really nice kind of cascadey, springy reverb, and it has a momentary second latch on it, so
Oh
you can
fuck
like
yeah.
push it into some pretty unique territory. So I'd be remiss if I didn't plug that pedal on here. But otherwise, I have always played a Gibson Les Paul.
Yeah.
That's been my guitar of choice for a very long time.
Yeah, I have a Les Paul Studio,
Yeah, great guitar.
and yeah, I also got a Pro Telecaster, and then I sold a Jaguar. It's not too far back, but I can't get enough of that Gibson tone. It's just so fat, and
It's very
it's
that's what it is. It's
yeah.
fat, and you gotta. The one thing I'll say that I learned quickly, if you strum it light, you can fade to the back and be underneath that fat. So
Mhm.
you gotta really dig into that guitar to
Yeah.
get some of the mids to register, and then it's just like it's a rock machine.
Yeah, it just plays so well. It's ridiculous. So, uh, playing live, do you interpret the songs live differently than when writing them or in the studio? Like
There's always room for interpretation. I mean,
yeah.
if I feel confident enough, I might throw in a little lick or like gallop a part that I don't typically gallop, or do like a little string bend or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, there's obviously, when you play like in an adrenalized space, you don't play the song quite as slow.
Yeah.
We make a conscious effort not to rush stuff, but you're playing live. There's going to be a little bit of that happening. Um, and yeah, otherwise, I mean, no, it's not. We're not a jam band.
Yeah.
So we don't leave that open to interpretation
Yeah.
as much.
Do you get catharsis out of playing live?
It is incomparable.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of other, moments of flow and cathartic happiness in life,
Yeah.
but it is legitimately addicting,
Yeah.
and I wish I could do it more. I will say, when I was playing live all the time, I was pretty sick of playing live.
Yeah.
So it's good that that we do it now more sparingly and have something to look forward to.
Yeah,
Like all things, I wish I could do it more, but
Yeah.
we're still jamming a few tours a year, which is a great thing to be able to do when you're at. I feel very fortunate.
Yeah, 100%. 1%. So, do you have any, this might be a weird one. Do you guys have any pre-show rituals?
I mean, we collectively no, other than like a fist bump type of deal right before we get on stage.
Yeah.
I've seen some fun ones from other bands who will like sing songs together and do like weird routines to kind of get themselves into like a performance space. But no, we we're just hanging out, joking, and
Yeah.
we all stretch. From
Yeah,
that's
for
both a
sure.
combination of age and like
Yeah.
being kind of rubber bands on stage. Probably move around a lot and feel the music that way. I would say that's it. I will say I didn't always come from a place of playing sober.
Mhm.
I would either like hit a joint before
Yeah.
playing or like have a shot of whiskey or whatever,
Sure.
just to kind of shake the nerves. But the last few tours, and all those guys play sober, and I was like, man, am I missing out on something? Turns out I did. So the last few tours have been stage sober tours, and it's a blast. You
Yeah.
really you connect with your instrument in a different way. Having that mental acuity and sharpness is really it's critical now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, I want to bring up Brian real quick. When I asked if playing live was cathartic for him, he said no because apparently he's he's had a sort of problem with, not a problem, but he's sort of nowadays his fans, they don't bop or move around as much, so he has no idea if they're liking it or not, like the music.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I don't know
we
if you
like it.
noticed that.
We like it for ourselves, but we definitely are much happier when there's movement in the audience.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a mosh pit, but when people are like actively participating,
Mm.
it makes playing for an hour a lot more interesting than like, oh my God, why are they just staring? The worst is when people are in the front row and on their phones.
Oh, goddamn, yeah. That
I'm
would
like, man, like
why
I
are
know
you
sometimes
fucking here, you know?
well, I know sometimes you want to take a picture or like record a video. All that stuff is fine, but
Yeah.
um, if someone's like, actively on their phone or like talking to someone next to them, showing them something, I'm like, you guys, like, just go to the back and do
Yeah.
that. It's really, it's quite the mental break.
Yeah, it's wild when I see that shit happen. I'm like, why are you here? Like, or just go to the back.
I don't know. I know you paid money.
yeah, you're here for you paid $20, you're here. Um, so, uh, if I think it's a good time to ask you, what are you jamming?
You mean like equipment wise or like what I
No,
listen
what
to?
do you listen to? Yeah, what are you jamming right now? What do you listen to?
I had a feeling you would ask me that, so I wrote down a couple things,
Great.
and I tried to do it. Like, I went in with like, what are the things I've listened to in the last couple of days, just to give you kind of more of an accurate representation of what I'm listening to. So I'll just list out some things.
Yeah.
I've been re-listening to the Corrupted discography.
Yeah.
Corrupted are, I should say, a Japanese crushingly heavy sludge doom band. With very simplistic riffs.
Yeah.
I put out a bunch of records back then, and I revisit those for every once in a while. I listen to a UK artist, like a soundscape artist named Craven Faults. Craven, like Craven, and then Fault, like an actual fault line.
Okay.
It's really like electronic, glitchy kind of krautrock stuff that just builds layers. Really cool stuff.
Nice.
I listen to a fair amount of, I guess what would be called dungeon synth.
Yeah.
And I like Fog Weaver and a lot of the stuff on Out of Season. Um, especially this time of year when the weather's cold,
Oh, it's
I check,
perfect.
I check in with a lot of soundscapey stuff. Band from Europe, crushingly heavy, Titan Blood. I don't know if you know who they are, but
I will know after this for sure.
yeah, Titan, Teitan, and then Blood. Super dense, thick, almost like nauseating to take in one sitting.
Yeah.
Then a couple of other bands. This one was on $20 Spin. I don't know if you know that label, but it's a band called Corpus Offal.
Okay.
Heavy, awesome. And then another band called Degraved, also a death metal band, came out on Misako Unoyo, which is a really cool UK label that releases just a ton of great death metal. So those are the spheres in which I listen to music, and I also listen to a ton of old country music.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Merle Haggard and
Oh yeah. Fuck yeah,
Buck
dude.
Owens and all that stuff. So
It's just
that's
that's like as pure as it gets. I feel like when it
yeah.
comes. Yeah.
No modern country. I mean, I'll put on Dwight Yoakam,
Yeah.
and that's about as 80s as I get. But yeah, I do love a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I really want to thank you for talking to me today.
Yeah, man,
Hey,
it's a good time.
hey, I'll let you know when this is out, and I'll talk to you later, man.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, that was my conversation with Laurent Beck from Pelican. Minnow and someone spent decades proving you don't actually need words to absolutely flatten someone emotionally. Just guitars. Big thanks to Laurent for taking the time and talking through everything: the band's evolution, chill-out hardcore history, Flickering Resonance, and what he's jamming. Underneath you right here, Evergreen from the newest record. Now I want to know, what are you jamming? Place to come on our socials, or send me an old-fashioned email at whatyajammingpodcast@gmail.com. Yes, email. I like that shit. And I'll see you guys next time. Rock on or whatever.